Hello, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to our candidates forum for the Keene part of our election this November. My name is Peter Slocum. I'm going to try to be the moderator to keep things moving along. Just a quick thing. Obviously, in a time of COVID, we very much appreciate everybody wearing masks, and we have doors open here. The school's air conditioning system is moving, and if people feel uncomfortable, as close as you have to be now, we can set up more chairs, but please let us know if you have any concerns. What we're going to do is go office by office and have the candidates for each office speak briefly. We've asked them to prepare 2 minutes of introductory remarks, and then we will ask you, members of the audience, to pose questions to them. We'll have both or all 5 candidates for each office speak first, then you pose questions to either one of them or all of them. We'll have a microphone that I'll circulate for your asking questions, because we do want to capture this on tape as much as possible. So raise your hand, we'll call on you and try to get a mic to you so you can answer the question on tape. I think that's it, right? We're going to try to go an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. If you want to stay later and ask more questions after that, hopefully it won't be raining. It's better to do it outside so we won't not cluster up in here for COVID reasons, okay? All right, so the first office to consider today is the highway superintendent, and we have one candidate for that office, Scott Smith. Scott?
Thank you. My name is Scott Smith. I'm a Republican candidate for highway superintendent. I've been employed with the highway department for over 19 years, the last 4 years as highway superintendent. So far, I think I've done a pretty good job maintaining the roads in the summer and the winter, trying to do it efficiently and fiscally responsible. During my current term, I was able to upgrade some equipment, such as a new tandem dump truck, plow truck, backhoe, equipment trailer, and I have a new loader on order. I've been able to surplus used and outdated trucks and equipment. I've been able to make road improvements such as paving, drainage upgrades, including ditching and culvert replacements. This year especially, we've done quite a bit of work for the county highway, so that brings in extra revenue for the town. Probably the biggest infrastructure improvement we got is just before I got elected was the new sand and salt storage facility. That definitely helps with our salt storage and helps reduce the pollution up at the highway garage. Some of my concerns pretty much is just the extreme weather patterns that we're having, especially in the winters, warm winters or a heavy snow event. And also in the summer, the heavy rains. The rains now seem more like they're quick, heavier rains that's more capable of producing flash flooding and washouts. And especially now, another concern is the increased costs, especially the fuel prices. Fuel prices are making everything go up. Asphalt and everything that we haul, gravel, the sand that we get that's hauled in, and plowing snow in the winter. So thank you for your time today.
Questions for Superintendent Smith? No questions? Okay. Yeah, we want to get you on tape, Mary, okay?
Can I take this down? No. Okay, I can't. All right, hey, Scott, how many are work for our highway department? How many employees?
I have 6 full-time employees. I have 6 full-time employees.
Oh, and we have part-time?
No part-time.
No,
6 employees
just
then.
6 employees?
Yeah.
And your budget is, what's your yearly budget?
I don't know.
For next year, we're projecting it to be about 1,258,000. So it's pretty much in line with what the general fund budget is as well.
It may have gone up a little bit, I'm not sure. We haven't quite got the full figures.
For this year, it was $1,158,798. That was 2020.
Question?
Thanks, Scott. I think you're doing a phenomenal job.
Oh, thank you.
For your service. Could you explain to us your practices on salt sand mix for the town roads?
Yeah.
Curious how that breaks down.
Sure. We pretty much, as it comes in now, we just mix it as we go. It's like a 8-to-1 ratio, about 9% salt. And we just, all the same, it's all the same. Maybe sometimes, like in the springtime, if we want to put a little more salt in it to just get the roads clear faster, we could do that. But pretty much it's all the same all year. And the guys are pretty good at just, putting salt or sand down where they need it the most. I know there's been some concerns around the block, so maybe we'll try to reduce a little bit of that around the block this year. Maybe not so much at the intersections, but maybe in between.
David?
Thank you. I have a question. I just was wondering, in prior years, we've had, we could go to the dump and get some sand for our driveways and walkways. And
Right.
I understand that stopped. Can you tell us why, and can we get that back? Because that's really useful.
Yeah, technically, because the town buys it, we technically can't give it away. It's almost kind of like a theft of services, I guess. And I know it's been a concern, especially now, especially when we're working in there. We didn't need a lot of people coming in and out all the time. There is sometimes we may not see it if people come in and take sand, so I'll leave it at that. Right.
No more questions? All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, next office is Town Justice. We have two candidates, Chris Daly and Barb Dwyer, and by a few letters of the alphabet, Chris Daly goes first.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks to the sponsors of this afternoon's forum, and most of all, thanks to all of you for coming out on a Sunday afternoon to hear me and the other candidates. My name is Chris Daly, and I am running for Town Justice. Many of you probably don't know me very well. My wife and I are relative newcomers to town. We were part-time residents for a couple of years and became full-time residents last year. I know that length of residence in town is important to many of you, and I understand that. But I ask you to keep an open mind and to also consider the importance of the qualifications and the experience of the person that you elect to serve as a town justice. I have been a practicing lawyer for 30 years. I was a partner at my former law firm for 20 years. I was twice elected by my law partners to sit on the management committee that ran our law firm. I am happy to have this opportunity to take all of that experience and the judgment and the discretion that I have developed over the course of a long legal career and put that to work for the people of Keene in serving as a town justice. I have enjoyed meeting folks around town as I have knocked on doors to introduce myself. I look forward to meeting many more of you in the coming weeks as I continue to do that. And I hope that I can earn not only your vote, but your trust. Thank you very much.
Barb Dwyer, please.
I'd like to thank all of you who are here today. It's a pleasure. And I'd like to thank the organizers of the event today. Most of you know me. I'm Barbara Dwyer. I've been a resident here for 45 years. In late May, I was selected unanimously by the town board to fill the vacancy created by Bill Harrell's resignation as town justice, and I was sworn in June 8th. I've been working with Judge Jordan side by side. It's been an invaluable experience, and it's very fulfilling and rewarding. We are a town undergoing a lot of change socially. We have a lot of pressures on the town. I've had 2 personal experiences in the last 4 years which have opened my eyes. It was at this time of year 4 years ago that a forest ranger showed up on my step Saturday afternoon to ask me if there had been any unusual truck activity or vehicle activity up and down Irish Hill Road. And this is also the time of the year when Vermont National Guard likes to fly over to see the leaves. They have another dual purpose. They're also looking for marijuana grows, and there was one up on Irish Hill Road. And they asked us if we had noticed a vehicle coming up the road at unusual times. The grow had been spotted the weekend before, and by the time the rangers got up there, it had been harvested. That was a little frightening. The second incident was this past January. I came home, I was having friends for dinner, and I came home and I thought, oh, I better get my wood stove going, because the house was a little cold. And I walked into my living room, and my wood stove was fully loaded and lit. And I had not been home since 9 in the morning. And someone came into my house and warmed up with my wood stove. And it wasn't my daughter, Olivia. I called her. She had not been there. That was a little concerning. And then the next Friday night, I came home, and the lights were on in my hot tub. Someone had come and used my hot tub. So I now have electronic locks on my house, which I've never considered for 45 years. We have a different attitude with a larger volume of population. And Judge Jordan and I are seeing quite a bit of the results of that. Since I've been on the bench, we've had 3 trials in court. Judge Jordan was called in this week for an arraignment because the judge wasn't available in Osable. We also had an FBI inquiry a few weeks ago for a gentleman who was applying for a firearms license, and all the FBI knew was that he had been charged with something in Essex County. So they reached out to all the town judges. He was not in our court. It turned out he was in county court. For those working in government, they cannot access search engines, public search engines, from their government computers. I did a Google search and found that the gentleman had been in county jail 3 times. I found the county court opinion, and I spoke to the FBI, and I faxed it down to them that morning. I don't think that gentleman's getting a firearms license. So it's far-reaching, and we are touched by many elements that are impacting our community. Those of you who know me know that I've been very involved in the town of Keene while I've been a resident. I served on the Neighborhood House Board for 23 years as treasurer. I served on the committee to bring the bank to town, negotiating with the bank on their location and their services. I also served on the school board of education for 6 years and was the Keene School representative on the BOCES board for 10 years. I then served as trustee at North Country Community College representing Keene for almost 8 years, and then I served on Cornell Board of Cooperative Extension for Essex County for 6 years representing Keene. I feel it would be, with my knowledge of the town and the community, I would be an asset on the bench to help us adjudicate what comes before us with compassion and justice. And I think that's a concern. There are some things that are more appropriately addressed in different courts, such as some DWIs really should go to drug court so people can get services in counseling. And we shouldn't be punishing them. And I think both Judge Jordan and I bring that to the bench. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Thank
Okay.
you. Questions for either both candidates?
For Mr. Daly, what size community did you come here from where you practiced law before?
We were on Long Island and, sold our home earlier this year. We had vacationed up here for many, many years before deciding to buy a second home here. And we decided in 2020 that we would make the move to. Oh, sure. Well, where we lived was a smaller community on Long Island. Where I practiced was on Long Island, but in a downtown area. It was a relatively large law firm, if that's what you're asking about. We did have multiple offices on Long Island. We had an office in New York, and we had an office in Albany. Sure.
Other questions? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much. Town Clerk is next. Kimberly Ellen Smith.
Get this untangled here. Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank Unite the North Country for organizing today's forum, for inviting all of us to attend, and for all of you who have come to meet us and hear what we have to say. I'm Kimberly Ellen Smith. I'm running for the position of Town Clerk. I'm married to Donald Smith, and we reside on Brown Mountain Way in Keene. I have over 17 years of governmental experience from my positions as the records clerk and the deputy tax receiver for the town of Queensbury. As an elected official, the town clerk has many responsibilities that coincide with that title. This position is also designated the tax collector, the records management officer, and also the registrar of vital statistics for the town. I'm familiar with each of these responsibilities delegated, and I'm confident in my ability to serve as the town clerk here in Keene. Additionally, the town clerk is responsible for keeping the minutes of the town board meetings. These official minutes become the history of the town. One of my priorities is to ensure that detailed, accurate, nonpartisan town board meeting minutes are taken. I know that it takes dedication, knowledge of the laws and regulations of this position, and a lot of behind-the-scenes hours to make it all work. I will continue to attend trainings and seminars to keep abreast of any changes that may occur, as well as maintain my professional contacts with other local officials. My promise to you is that the town clerk will be my full-time commitment. I'm looking forward to serving Keene in the years to come. I'm asking for your support, your consideration, and your vote in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ann Whitney?
Welcome, everyone. I want to start by thanking Unite the North Country for putting this all together, and also Keene Central School, and also everybody here. Thank you for coming. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Ann Whitney. I am excited to be given the opportunity to run for the town clerk position. I have served on Keene Central School, the school board, for 12 years. I volunteered for the Keene Fire Department as secretary and treasurer for 10 years. And for many years, I did the Keene Youth Commission. I work full-time as a sales consultant for Adirondack Chevy. I've worked there for 31 years. Now that I've moved into the sales end of things, that now has allowed me to run for this position. I feel I am more than qualified. I have the skills and the qualifications to effectively serve the community. I would like to add that I do work with a town clerk for a neighboring town. So we work side by side all day long. So he will be helpful in the things I may not know as of yet. I hope to have everyone's support in November, depending on how things turn out. At that point, I will pursue the training of the town clerk. Thank you all very much for everything. And I have a handout with my phone number, email, and all the other details about my life. But I haven't been out door to door, and in the letter it'll explain that. And if anybody would like me to come visit, I would love to do that. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Questions for either of the town clerk candidates?
Actually, my question is for both of the candidates. If you were to win, what hours and days would you be working?
Thank you, that's a good question. Currently, the town clerk has been working 3 days a week from 9 to 1. I would like to increase the hours, and that would depend on what the feedback is from the community, whether they want longer days, additional day, evening hours, or Saturday hour, or hours on Saturdays. And one other thing that I'm interested in doing is hunting season, I know, is big up here, and so on the first day that you can purchase a hunting license, I would stay open that evening till around 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. to give hunters the opportunity. A lot of them work during the day and can't make it to the town hall, so I think that's an important opportunity so they don't travel elsewhere for that license. Thank you.
I also I will work an 8 to 1 one day, and then I plan to do a 3 or 4 o'clock till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, 2 nights a week, and I'll work Saturdays all through tax season. I'll see what days work better for people, and I'm always available. Now that my kids are gone, I like to have something to do till 7, 8 o'clock at night. But that is my intentions, and I'll work opposite what my other coworker does, because our employer is all for any of that. So I will do whatever the community needs me to do, and that's that. Thank you.
Kimberly, is that correct? So what are some of the challenges of being a town clerk that you've experienced over the years? And what do you like about the job?
I'm sorry, I think I heard your question. You're wondering what is the challenge of being a town clerk?
Yes.
Some of the challenges. With the tax collection part, there's always a challenge of people not wanting their assessments to go up and the taxes to go up. We have to balance every day to the penny when you're collecting money, and there's some people who like to write you checks and they're not accurate. So it's a challenge to get a hold of them and say, this, you only wrote it for maybe 5 cents too much, but we can't take 5 cents too much, so it has to be to the penny. So some of that is a challenge. The town board meeting minutes will be something that will be new to me. Anyone who has seen me going to the meetings, I'm ferociously writing things in my notebook, and then that's not because I'm trying to compete with meeting minutes, but I like to compare them to what is being written by Corey Ann, and I've also gone into the town hall and read some past minutes so that I have an understanding of how Town of Keene's procedures usually are done. And each town clerk needs to come up with their own style of writing, I think, for that. And that, I think, is very important because that is the history of the town. So 20 years from now, somebody might want to go back and read the minutes, and they should be a recollection of exactly what transpired at the meeting. And that's probably going to be the highest challenge, I believe. I think you had a second part to your question, too. What do I like about the job? Being able to interact with the public and multitask. A day goes by so much more faster if you have many different aspects to deal with and to concentrate on. So being able to be in a fast-paced work environment and multitasking and being able to meet everyone who I've been out to meet already at the Town of Keene and interact with them on a daily basis is something that I'll look forward to. I've done that for the past 17 years in the town clerk's office. You learn new things every day. The legislation is always changing from year to year. That's another thing you always have to stay on top of to make sure that you're doing things appropriately and by the book. Thank you.
Kimberly, this is also for you, if I may. Don't sit down. I want to thank you for running as a newcomer to town. I know that's not always easy. And also to you, Chris, as a newcomer, breaking into a new world. So thank you both. You seem quite seasoned as in municipal administration. You're running as a Republican for town clerk. Could you comment on the room for partisanship or politics in the job of town clerk, please?
Absolutely. So I ran in the primary as a Republican, as did Ann. I won the Republican primary. I also am running as an independent. I did the petition for both of those, just so that you know that. The position of town clerk is not to make any decisions. We are there to take payments for the taxes, to do the town board meetings, like I said. I think it's very important that the town board meetings are accurate and they're nonpartisan. The town clerk doesn't get to vote on anything. We're not part of the decision-making process. The party that we're affiliated with should not affect our job. Working for the town of Queensbury, I first started there when Dan Steck was supervisor. And then since then it has been John Strow, and he's a Democrat. So the position in which this entails doesn't really matter what your party affiliation is. It's not decision making on it any way. So thank you.
Other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. Okay, so now town council. There are 5 candidates on the ballot. And by the way, I failed to mention at the beginning, there's a sample ballot over there on the check-in desk if you want to take one home so you can study it beforehand. There's also a list of early voting dates and locations. And there's something else that's interesting over there too. But anyway, absentee ballot application, all of which you can get on the website for the Board of Elections, but it's also right there. Okay, so town council, there are 5 members running, and by alphabet, Mr. Biesmeyer, would you please go first?
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, David. And thank all of you for attending today and giving us the opportunity to explain who we are and why we try to get your support. I was born in Keene, went to school at this high school, and have lived here off and on all my life. I've raised my 2 children, Tommy and Lily, here. My wife, Tish, and I have, we moved back here in 1985. In 1986, the town board at that time decided to try another planning effort, and they put together 10 people, of which I was the chair of that commission. We spent 3 years working on what turned out to be adopted in 1990 as our site plan review law. And I stayed on to chair it for another 7 years, and then for 24 years now, I've served on our town board. So rather than continue there, what I would like to do is take the time to try to tell you as to what I try to do going forward if I'm elected. And I know we're all very aware of the issues in our town, I think. And what I try to do is prioritize what I feel are essential from those requiring outside help, both in planning, engineering, and financing. The issues I feel are essential are water, landfill, high-speed broadband, maintenance of our highway buildings, library, recreational fields, and of course staying vigilant about, about preventing COVID infections, as well as continuing to fund our youth commission and senior citizen programs. Other issues that can't be ignored and we need to stay focused on are achievable housing, short-term rentals, little peaks, caring for our senior population, hiker visitor parking. These are issues that our strategic planning commissions have been working hard on and have presented us with recommendations which we need to work together on to find the best way to implement and achieve them. What to me is also important with regards to prioritizing is determining what we can afford without incurring additional debt. We are limited by what we receive in property taxes. It's important to realize 55% of property taxes goes to funding our school. 21% goes to funding the county. 9% goes to funding our highway department. 5% goes to funding our fire districts. And 10% are funds that we, the town board, control. In dollars, this year, 2021, that total budget, or our budget, was $1.3 million. The challenge to achieve all our goals is to secure additional funding so as not to place an even greater burden on our taxpayers. And thank you very much. I look to answer any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. So next Tarita Chisholm-Palin.
Hello, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Unite the North Country, for pulling this together. This is a really important event in our community, and I appreciate all the interest and everyone who came out tonight. I have served 12 years on the Keene School Board and 1 term on the town board, and I'm asking for another term. I'm excited to continue the work that we started with the 2021 strategic plan. That process began a few years ago, and the plan was adopted in the spring of 2021. And I'm excited to continue the efforts that were outlined in that plan. We have a lot of really incredible assets in this community. I know we focus on the problems, but I think it's also important to point out what is working in our community. We are surrounded by the most beautiful mountains in the world. We have access to incredible outdoor recreation amenities. We have a very vibrant community, as is shown right here. People volunteer for our all volunteer EMS and fire departments. We had tremendous volunteer support for the strategic planning process. We still have volunteer support for that process as we move on into new committees to carry out the work that was identified, or the goals that were identified. We have an incredible school, which we're sitting in right now. We have a health center in town, and soon on the horizon is a full-day childcare center. And those are all really exciting things that we have in our community to support us. Some of the challenges I see going forward: we do have aging infrastructure. Most of our municipal buildings are old, they're leaky, they're drafty, not energy efficient, and finding ways to shore them up and make them continue to serve us effectively going forward is going to be a challenge. And the other challenge I see in this community is housing. It's really important to have diverse housing opportunities so that we can continue to have new young families move into our community to participate in our beautiful school. It's important to have individuals who want to come and work in our community to be able to live in our community instead of having to travel half an hour, 45 minutes to get here, especially through winter roads. I think it's also important to look around. We have an aging population, and housing is also important for our seniors. Finding universally designed housing so it's adequate and also energy efficient is also an important thing that we're going to work on going forward, and that's part of what the Housing Task Force is working on now, and we're addressing it from as many avenues as we can. I'm also excited to continue to work on the age-friendly community project. That is also going to be important since we have an aging population. We do have some decent amenities for our community here, but I think there are things we can do to make it more age-friendly. And if it's age-friendly for seniors, it's going to be age-friendly for younger people and also more accessible to people that maybe need a wheelchair or have difficulty walking. I want to capitalize on the momentum that we have started from our strategic planning process. There's still a lot of volunteer effort out there, and we could not do it without that. We are a small community. We do not have a large government to divvy up the work, so it really is definitely community-driven and volunteer-driven. I look forward to be able to continue the work I'm on the Housing Task Force, the Age-Friendly Community Task Force, the Short-Term Rental Service Task Force, the Keene Diversity Advisory Committee. I'm a liaison to the Keene Clean Energy Team. I'm on the Highway Committee and the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I look forward to continuing to serve you going forward. And I thank you, hopefully, for your vote in November.
Thank you. Sadie Kaltenbach.
Good evening. My name is Sadie Kaltenbach. Most of you know me as Sadie Holbrook, and I was born and raised on Bucks Lane in Keene. I have since spent time traveling and in Utah. I returned last September to start a family of my own in the North Country. My career is focused on children's nutrition and nutrition education. I grew up in a community that took care of its neighbors, and I would like to be a part of the generation that follows and continues that legacy. My focuses will be on making Keene livable, sustainable while being accessible, and as efficient as possible. I believe making Keene livable for incoming families means affordable housing, accessible child care, community-directed fundraising, and a livable wage that supports the small businesses that are the heart of our community. Making Keene sustainable and accessible directly relates to tourism and conservation of the High Peaks and our community. Revenue-based solutions driven by tourism should be allocated to issues such as trail widening and waste management, dangerous and limited parking, and education on the history and purpose of these protected lands. Lastly, I believe simple solutions and long-term investment can create more efficient processes throughout the town's departments, including but not limited to waste management, transparency, digitization, conservation, small business support systems, river and wildlife management, etc. I would like to thank those who organized this forum, the candidates participating, and the community supporting us. Thank you.
And Mary Molly Lawrence.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Unite the North Country. I know these things can be a lot of work to put on. I've kind of done it before. So I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to everyone for coming out on what is now a beautiful Sunday afternoon. So yes, I am on the ballot as Mary Molly Lawrence. A vote for Mary Lawrence is not a vote for my mom. You are, in fact, voting for me. Thank you. A lot of people have asked me, too. I am on the ballot as a Republican candidate. I know people who know me may find that as a bit of a surprise, but I do identify as a Republican. It's okay to vote for a Republican. It feels good to be a little rebellious sometimes, so I encourage that. Thank you. Anyway, I grew up here. I'm fifth generation Lawrence here in this town. I have deep family roots here. I went to this school just like Uncle Bobby did and some of our other candidates, and I'm happy to have my son starting kindergarten here this fall. I moved away after college for a little bit. I spent some time overseas. I lived in London for a little bit in college. After school, I graduated. I lived a lot of my professional life up in Clinton County, which is close, but also very different from here. I gained a lot of good, relevant work experience while I was up there. I started off in the public sector, working for traffic safety and Stop DWI. I ran those two programs in Clinton County for almost 5 years. I sat on the traffic safety board during that time, started working closely with law enforcement. And then after that, I moved on to social services, where I worked as a child protective services investigative caseworker and foster care caseworker for almost 10 years, before going into small business, running a spray foam installation business. I built 3 houses before I moved back here. And I really wanted my son in this school, and I wanted to return to the town of Keene. I love it here. So that's why I'm running, because I love living here. I love this community. I want to support it and advocate for it. And there's a lot of issues that are close to my heart. I think I'm probably the only person running for board who is not a property owner in the town of Keene. I'm a single mom. I have a limited income, but I still manage to live here. But I know how difficult that is, and I think those are important things to be represented on the board. I think all of the issues addressed in the strategic plan are very relevant. I agree with it. I'm glad the board adopted it. I would be very much looking forward to working towards those issues and supporting the plan. And that's what I have to say. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. I think Guy Smith, the 5th candidate, is not here with us today, so we can proceed right to questions for any of those 4 candidates. COVID safety.
Peter. In terms of what Bob mentioned, making the taxes affordable for the residents who live here, there's recently been news about how the increased property values in our area may result in increased assessments. What I'd like to ask all the candidates, each one of you, is how you would deal with that, and would you be willing to add a tax similar to the New York City tax on part-time residents who don't have their primary residence in the town of Keene?
So you can take turns answering that question. It's open for everybody. Please step up to the mic, though, so we can do that.
That's an interesting idea. I'm actually not sure if that, can you do that? I don't know. I guess that would be an interesting concept to look into. I never considered whether you could treat a second home owner in terms of taxes differently. But I'd be willing to entertain and look into that idea.
Anybody else? Bob?
Sure. You're correct. Affordable housing is a serious challenge in the town of Keene. and I'm opposed to any new taxes. What I do think is worth pursuing, though, and on a countywide basis, which other towns are doing, and Joe Pete's been involved, I think, as well, in starting land banks, and land banks that acquire properties throughout the entire county, and then make them available with assistance and funding for new residents that may need funding. Other ideas could be a lengthy discussion.
Molly?
On the surface, I think it sounds like a good idea, but like Teresa, I'd like to make sure that we could do it before I would go and support something that's not possible. But I do think it's a good idea. I think the people who live here year-round should be able to continue to afford to live here year-round. And people who have second homes, well, maybe you can afford a little more than we can. So, yeah.
So affordable housing is definitely something that's super important to me. I personally am in a rent-to-own home right now, and the only reason I have that opportunity is because it was my parents, and they kept it in the family. I believe that lowering property tax in any way we can for year-round citizens who support this community would be incredible. Those with second homes, I would say it's your second home. If you can't afford it, go to your first. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
This is to all the candidates. As a previous code enforcement officer, I see a lot of violations in this town that aren't being addressed. There's a couple of houses here that are abandoned and they don't have doors and windows. One had a fire and they're not sectioned off. The code enforcement officer has not gone and secured them like is according to the code. If you're elected on the town board, what would you do about that? I mean, the code enforcement officer is at the pleasure of the town board, and I see a lot of things happening in this town, and the town board is turning a blind eye.
That's a free-for-all. Go ahead.
I think that's a really good point, and I do know that our town code enforcement officer has been working more hours than previously expected. So I think that there's been a lot of new construction, and he's been asked to do more. But perhaps in that, in trying to balance that out, he's not following through on existing properties and making sure that those things that you mentioned are being taken care of. So. Thank you for letting me know, and I will definitely look into that.
You're right, John. There are probably a lot of areas within our building codes that when you were our code enforcement officer, you spent a lot of time on it, and you certainly established a pretty thorough office that rode herd on new projects were available. Our code enforcement officer, I think, is probably spread a little thin. He does our town together with, I think, at least 3 or 4 others. And to try and address everything that he has to address is a lot of things fall through the cracks, as you said. With regards to houses that you deem to be unsafe and could cause a problem, I mean, all I can say is just make sure you identify them. I don't know which ones you're talking about right now, but just send a letter or something addressed, an email to the town board, town supervisor, and let us know which ones you're concerned about. Thank you.
I will say that I know that I am young and inexperienced, but I am excited to learn about things like code enforcement. Obviously, with abandoned, broken down buildings, safety first. I know lots of children roaming around, lots of interesting places, and I definitely went to my fair share of abandoned buildings. I would say that if there is a problem with a code enforcer being spread too thin, we need to look at delegation and efficiency of his routes and general procedures, look at labor, and look at just all the opportunities that we can to help him be more efficient in getting around to the abandoned buildings. Thank you.
Well, I don't know specifically what properties you're talking about, but if I were on the board, I would ask you to email them to us so that we could talk to the code enforcement officer about it and go from there. I'm quite sure that he is spread thin. I know he does have at least 3 other jurisdictions that he's on, and I know building's always important and you got to prioritize, but that doesn't mean that it should be at the safety of the town. So just ask for an email and go from there. Thank you.
Other questions? 4 candidates, no questions? Okay. Thank you, folks. Last but not least, Town Supervisor Corianne Favreau.
Good evening, everyone. Before I start my speech, I would just like to add in a little thing about John's question. Code enforcement and systems that we currently have in place with the planning board has been a concern of mine as the town clerk in the office. He is supposed to be there 2 days a week. People come in all of the time looking for the code enforcer, looking for answers on planning board and things, and I have spoken to the planning board as well. I do believe we need better systems in place for planning board, code enforcement, more accountability for code enforcement in general. So that's my take on that, and I do think code enforcement does need to be more accountable to the supervisor and the town board, and we need more feedback and information from him. Okay, so hi, I'm Corianne Favreau, by the way. I'm the independent candidate for town supervisor. I'm running under the Local Families Party. Thank you, United North Country, for putting this together, and thank you to the community for coming out. It's great to be back here in the Beaver Dome. This is my alma mater, and I'll be coaching girls varsity basketball here in just a few short months. I've been racking my brain for days trying to think of the best way to convey myself, my reason for running for town board supervisor in just 1 to 2 minutes, and I know that's just not possible. So before I give it my best shot, I would encourage you to sit and talk with me to get to know me a little more before you make your choice in November. It took a lot of courage for me to run for this position, to put myself out there, to run against an incumbent while working in the same office. It has not been easy, but I did it because I care about my community. Keene is important to me. My family has been here for generations. I grew up in this town. My family has been here. Raising my kids here, and I plan to grow old here. I have always been taught to stand up for something you believe in. My grandfather, Lou Gregory, always told me hard work and perseverance. So here I am, up here on this platform, giving it my all. With that being said, I'll go over what my sights are set on for the following issues currently facing the town of Keene. Maintenance and updates and pride in our town-owned facilities, our playgrounds and our recreation areas, skating rinks and sidewalks. The transfer station, it needs updates, innovation to be more cost-effective, environmentally friendly, and easily accessed for all. The tractor trailer is hard for people to climb into with their recyclables. Scheduled and budgeted maintenance and updates to water systems, employee engagement and appreciation, more arts and recreation opportunities locally, less driving to Lake Placid for parents, technology advancement, and keeping the Keene community spirit alive with kindness and energy. and all above improved communication and transparency in our government. So why elect me? Well, I feel I have a different set of skills in my tool belt than Mr. Wilson. Communication, transparency, innovation, and leading teams is what I am trained in and what I've been doing for 7 years with the nation's leading top dental solutions company. I know how to play on people's individual strengths, problem solving, and when something's not working, I keep an open mind. I do not think I'm the authority of everything. My first idea is not the best and not the only idea out there. I believe we have a community of brilliant people, and I plan on using the pools of knowledge to help solve our challenges as a community. And last but not least, treating everyone with respect and kindness that they deserve. Unlike many candidates in the past, taking on an incumbent, I have a slight advantage of being the town clerk, which has enabled me to see the day-to-day operations of the town of Keene, how the current supervisor is handling each situation, actions he's taking or not taking. I answer the phone, I speak with many of you, I see you come in the door, and I hear you. I also see every bill that comes in, where each dollar is being spent, and the inner workings of the budget. I analyze each dollar that's being spent, and I know that we could do better on spending your hard-earned tax dollars. I have vast knowledge of budgets, planning, revenue streams, quarterly planning, and contract negotiations. Again, it was seeing this data up close and working with our town employees and hearing citizens' feedback is why I decided to run. I know that I will be able to learn and understand the process quickly of being the supervisor. I will seek out answers if I do not know them. I will use the tools provided by the county and the state to continue in taking training courses and seminars and use mentors. I will communicate openly with the town board so we can work together to lead the town in the right direction. Supervisor is not an easy job, I know this well, but my leadership experience and my spirit, I know I will not let you down. I will very much appreciate your vote on November 2nd, and I look forward to talking with you more in the weeks to come. I leave you with this: a true measure of a person is how they treat someone who can do them absolutely no good. My email is cgfavro@gmail.com. I urge you to reach out to me. I do have an informational sheet that goes more about my background and training and my past 7 years in leadership. And that is all. I thank you for your time.
To build tension. Good evening, and thank you everyone for turning out here tonight. Thank you to the organizers. I know that's a common theme here, but I really do appreciate it, just like all the candidates do, getting to talk to a large group like this. Getting to go last also has some advantages. I picked up on a lot of themes here, and one is caring about the town of Keene, and I think every candidate up here with me cares about the town of Keene, and that's why they're running, why they're putting themselves out here. My grandparents bought a business here in Keene before World War II. My dad ran it. I worked there in the summers, left to go to college, go to grad school, and when my wife and I had kids, we wanted to move back here because Keene is a special, wonderful place to raise a family and to live. And I think that's a value we all share here. As supervisor, I'm in a unique place of balancing lots of competing needs. I hear questions about taxes. I hear questions about needing more time for our code officer. It all boils down to the money we have and how we use it. So this is a balancing act. The same with the pressures on our community. We've got a strong second home population here. We have a lot of visitors that surge in every weekend. Yesterday was the busiest day so far for the hiker shuttle. You know, you see the traffic, and for a town of 1,100, the supervisor and the town board are trying to balance the demands. We're a little town with a little staff and a little budget, and we've got a lot to manage. So the decisions are all balancing. How much does something cost? How much do we have available to afford that? One of the strategies I've used is to partner to get more out of organizations that exist in our community. The Ausable River Association is a prime example. Last year, they helped us do an emergency water repair at 50% the cost of a traditional engineering infrastructure project. So by working with partners, it saved Water District 1 50% on the cost of that project. Through the community master planning process, we had over 80 volunteers from the community work on that, developing that plan. So I worked with all the volunteers. They were the partners in developing that. Most towns budget $250,000 and hire a big architecture firm from downstate to come in and do their master plan. That's not what we did here. And the reason it was successful is because the residents of Keene, and it was both year-round residents and part-time residents involved in that, want to give their time. They want to be involved. And as supervisor, I've worked to set up our processes to take advantage of that and to be part of that. So working with partnerships is one of the ways to have the community involved, save us money, and accomplish the things that, a small town like ours just can't afford to throw money on. So I must be close to 2 minutes. Thank you again for all your support in the past.
We got plenty of time for questions. No questions? All right.
I know all of you here are supporters of Little Peaks, but I would ask both candidates for supervisor what specifically you would do to help us, I'm on the board of Little Peaks, accomplish what I think is one of the town's biggest needs and could be a huge contribution to the whole North Country.
So, Little Peaks is an amazing little school. My daughter went there, and the need for childcare is extremely needed right now, and the sooner the better. With town contracts and things like that, I'm not sure if we could contract to do the road work, the water lines, things like that. I would have to look into that more, but anything we could do to help speed up the process for Little Peaks, form any partnerships that we can to get that going. I believe that is really important, and it is an excellent program, and I'm so glad it's going to be full-time. It's such a needed thing, and that the child care ties into so many things. So anything we could do, I would be happy to work with you. Thank you.
Again, this is another example of partnerships, and I couldn't agree more with Corey and all the candidates who've talked about housing and child care. And to deliver on those words, I've facilitated meetings with DOT because they rule over the road cut with our highway superintendent, Little Peaks director, and the housing assistance program of Essex County, who owns the home lots there. Just about 10 days ago, put in a pre-application, again in partnership with the Housing Assistance Program of Essex County, for about $420,000 to facilitate tearing down the existing house that's there, to install the road and the water line, to service the new homes. And Little Peaks continued to talk with Scott Smith, who's trying to, bring the resources of the highway department to support the effort for both the school and housing. And I think that's an example of as supervisor, how I try and put this position to work to solve these problems. And the Little Peaks and the housing is such an amazing project because it's hitting two issues that are critical to our town that we addressed in the master planning process. And that's why I've made it a priority to put my time, it's a balancing act. If I'm putting time into this, it's got to be worth it to do it. This is one of those projects that's so worth it. So thank you.
I'll use the mic and I'll talk more quietly into the mic. I'll try. Corianne, you made reference to the fact that in your current job, you answer the phone and have a lot of interaction with the public and have made various observations, and this is a little sideways, but one of the things you said, you believe that the revenue streams could be used more efficiently. Could you give an example of one? I mean, I don't know whether you're prepared with little factoids, but I'm curious to know how you believe revenue streams coming into the town could be used more efficiently. Thank you.
Yes, so right now I do the water billing processing, and we switched to electronic from handwritten, which was great. But we send out a ton of paper and envelopes, stamped envelopes, and then second notices. The cost of stamps and things like that, that is very high. If we could go to like an electronic system that they could pay, you could get an email statement and they could pay online, that would save a lot of money. Right now we're paying personal cell phones at 100% for 4 employees, and the percentage of use for the town is not 100%. That was something I would like to look into, either getting a government contract phones or paying the percentage of what they're actually using for town use. The heating system, things like that, at the town hall is very outdated. If we went with like mini splits or something, that could be a lot more efficient and save money there. And one of the other bigger ideas to help save spending is to move the assessor into the town hall. That whole building by itself has like not efficient heating, the roof is all done, the internet. So if we were able to move him into the town hall, that would get rid of a whole spending of one building. So things like that were ways that I thought we could do spending a little better. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
Peter, I just would like, Tori, could you clarify who are the 4 employees who get 100% reimbursement?
I believe it's your phone, Scott Smith, Susan Whitney, and when she was here, and Ryan Hall.
So the reimbursement is at $40. It's not at 100, unless somebody has a cell phone for $40 for their plan. We pay $40, or excuse me, we pay 40% of the.
So they submit their vouchers, and it's a copy of their cell phone bill, and it's $40 per line, and we pay 100% of that, so $40.
100% of $40. So.
A month.
Yeah. So I think my bill is $86 a month for my phone. So $40 is 50% of my phone. I don't know what your monthly rate is, Scott, for your phone. Okay, so you get 100%. It depends on the plan the person has, so it's not a blanket payment. And when I first took office, we had phones that were paid for fully by the town, that the town owned. And I was advised by the comptroller not to do that because you can't control how that phone gets used. So we were doing that. The advice I received was to not do that, to reimburse. People submit their statement and you reimburse. So we could go back to that, but it's not necessarily what the comptroller advises as the proper plan. So, this is an example of every issue on the surface seems pretty simple, but there's wrinkles to it all. And at some point, you got to make a decision. Keep it the way it was, go with what the comptroller's advising. It's not perfect, but taking the comptroller's advice seems like the safest route to follow.
Joe Pete, since you're standing up, I mean, I've seen you, you know, talking about collaborations. Oh, no, sorry about that. So, Joe Pete, speaking of collaborations, of course, I've seen you, working with the DEC and a wide variety of other organizations in terms of our environmental issues, which have everything to do with parking. And I'm aware that you are working with like Roost and all those organizations on an overall strategic plan for our area. And you are also working with Common Ground, which is about planning and thinking of the big issues facing our Hope Park as a whole. What have you learned from this, these different types of planning process? What do you see are some of the big priorities that we need to address, and how should we go about addressing them?
Thank you, Naj. Yes, so part of what I learned when in 2017 had a meeting in the fire department with residents to hear about the issues of hiker parking. And it seemed so simple back then. But every action we take, every step we take, reveals how much more complex this is. So I think it's going to take, again, partners like the DEC, the state of New York, but also a more regional approach. And that's where working with Roost, working with other towns, on the weekends when thousands of people flood in here, how can we educate them and get them to spread out a little bit, to visit other nice parts of the area so that, we aren't overflowing with cars and foot traffic so that there's no place for parking in front of businesses on Route 73. It's a big, complex issue, and it's going to take a regional approach to dealing with this. So as part of Common Ground, we're looking at a regional approach to housing and working with the Northern Forest Center, who was hired by Common Ground to consult with Keene and other towns on developing diverse housing stock. On Friday, when David was trying to get in touch with me about salaries and benefits, I was actually meeting with the commissioner of the DEC and the governor, who came to Lake Placid unexpectedly. And the things I talked about with the governor were water infrastructure and how small towns like ours need funding, downtown revitalization, which addresses that. How do we deal with visitors? How do we educate them, funnel them? How do we get bathrooms and all the things we need to manage that? And then with the commissioner, continued support for dealing with the hikers here. Last year I got the DEC to pick up the cost of more porta potties that the town had been paying for. It seems like a trivial thing, but it's important for water quality, and I think it's important to put that back on the state when, to not have the town of Keene paying for these toilets at trailheads. We're a small town, and that shouldn't be our job. So I've pushed and worked with DEC to put that back on them. Did I get all the points of your question? Thank you, Naj.
Hello. As you know, I'm the director of the Keene Public Library, and some issues have been raised recently online, particularly next door Keene, about the state of our public facilities. These facilities belong to all the people, all the taxpayers, the children who are not yet taxpayers. And I guess my question for both candidates for supervisor is, the way I look at it is sometimes a penny saved is a penny earned. And sometimes a penny saved down the road means collapsing walls, leaking roofs, black mold in basements of our public facilities. What are some ideas of either how to preserve the buildings that we have in a way that actually brings the buildings up to code and brings in the efficiencies that we've been talking about, that some of the candidates have been talking about? And how do we pay for this? Just how do we pay for changes to individual buildings? Or are there other ideas that are out there that we need to consider as a community? Because this will cost money. There's no question. Even through grants, there could be matching funds that are required. So we need, what are some of the ideas that both of you have to bring pride back to the communities, to the facilities that we all own and are all a part of? Whoever wants to go first can go first. You can flip a coin, it's okay.
Thank you. Yes, it comes down to money, and you're absolutely right that neglect is so much more expensive than taking care of stuff. I learned that with Water District 2 out here, and our Keene Library is an example of the cost of neglect. So the process that the library and the library board did, we're now doing, or I'm proposing on Tuesday night, that we do for the community center, which is getting to the same condition. It's got major structural problems, electric system, plumbing, heating, heat efficiency, all those things. So with the library, the town hired an engineer to evaluate the building and prepare sort of an itemized list of what we need to do. Then with Aaron and with Karen Glass, we wrote a grant to the Clinton Essex Franklin Library System for some funds to effect those repairs. Thursday I met with the Keene Library Board and the Keene Valley Library Board to help plan how they can share space this coming winter so that the Keene Library can be closed. Aaron will operate out of the Keene Valley Library, so it'll be open. So again, these partnerships and all the pieces that it takes to put those in place are how we're going to get this done. For the community center, which is aging, has major problems, I'm proposing we get an engineer to evaluate it, help us plan out what, where do we start? What's it going to cost? And then that's going to be a much bigger scale. And that's where the community's really going to have to make a decision about what do we want to invest in fixing this community center, repairing it, renovating it. I don't know what the recommendation is going to be. We've got to get that report, but having that nuts and bolts evaluation is the first step. But then it's going to come back to the community. How do we balance our property taxes with the desire for better community buildings, for recreation facilities, all that? It's going to come back to you, the voters, the residents of the town. So I'll always be looking for input, just like we did with our community master planning. Thank you.
Okay, that was a great question, Aaron. Most of you are homeowners, and you all know that if you do not take care of your house every day, clean it, do the gutters, paint, power wash, things like that, that your house will quickly go downhill. I believe a lot of regular maintenance has been missed and has been looked over for our town facilities. We have weeds growing up over the windows, the siding of all the buildings just need to be power washed. There's simple things that could be done every season to help stop major issues with buildings. So I feel like we as a town have kind of missed that boat the last couple of years, where things are just getting to a point now that they are going to be irreversible if we do not do something quickly. With the library, it's been leaking for like 4 years, and we've shored up with some beams and things, but waited till now, till it's unsafe for anyone to even be in. I'm just wondering why that has been allowed to go on that long. And the other thing is budget season currently is underway right now. And there's no sign of any bids or estimates for repairs that are needed now for like the outdoor bathrooms. It wouldn't be a substantial amount of money to get those repaired in working order, some paint, some sheetrock, and just things like that. But there is I haven't seen any estimates to do any of these small repairs. If you drive by the community center, there is trees growing up into the windows. The playground is full of weeds. The pea stone. So pea stones are there to break falls and stuff so that it's soft, but when it grows up with weeds and it's hard like that, it becomes dangerous for children. So things like that should really just be taken care of and doesn't really cost a thing. And I also did notice that every year in the budget we put $5,000 away for a new hiker shuttle bus, but we don't have any pre-planning for things like we're going to put $5,000 away for a new heating system. Or things like that. So I would like to take a look at our priorities of spending. Thank you.
My question's addressed to anybody who wants to answer it. To what extent, if the federal government were to pass the infrastructure bill, would the results redound to the benefit of the town for some of our infrastructure problems?
Thank you, Monique. So to just follow up on a misstatement Corey made just now, we do put away $5,000 a year for a new hiker shuttle. That's called planning ahead. The money comes from the revenue the shuttle generates, not from property taxes. That was one of the things when I first looked at the budget and saw that property tax revenue was supporting hiker operations. And I drew a line and said, that's not going to happen. We're only going to do what we can afford from the revenue the shuttle generates. So that's how it's been run under my term as supervisor. We also do put away money for buildings, and that's when I talked about getting a consultant to evaluate the community center. That's where that money would come from. I'm literally every day I think about the federal infrastructure funding and will it get passed. For Water 2, I have a project ready to submit so that we're at the front of the line if a project that's better than the state EFC funding comes along. I want that water project because that's a huge cost for a small district that, you know, we don't have enough users in that district to support the size of the project. So I've got that queued up. And the community center, one of the things we used grant funds for was to do a design for a brand new community center. So if there is in that infrastructure bill qualifying program that we could combine our operations into library, seniors, youth, government operations, I've got a plan ready to submit for that. So again, every day I hope that that passes and there is some qualifying money that we can submit these ready to go projects for and be at the front of the line with solid projects that are supported in our community master plan. Thank you.
Like he stated, yes, if we did receive infrastructure grants, that would be great. So we could use that or funding. Another thing is coming out, Governor Hochul announced on the 21st of this month that there will be $600 million to communities statewide for water. So maybe we could use that grant for water and use the infrastructure on the buildings and recreation areas. So.
Thank you. Did you have, let me go here.
Can I jump in, Peter, for a second?
Pardon me?
Can I jump in even though she said that question was for all of us?
Well, let's wait for one more here.
Okay, my question is for Joe P. and Corey Ann. Joe P., the supervisor is a part-time position. You're aware of that, right? How are you able to juggle having any personal time to yourself? And my question for Corey Ann is, and how do you plan on being able to, you know, keep it a part-time job?
I believe part of it saying it's part-time with the town and a portion of your time is spent with the county. So I think that it would probably be, it's a full-time job, and if elected, I would be in the office 5 days a week when I'm not at the county, and I'll be leaving my current job that I have, so I won't be doing that anymore if elected. So, yeah.
So thank you, Donna. So not to be trite, but if you only work 5 days a week as supervisor, you aren't getting it done. On the weekends, I'm out working on hiker parking. In the evenings, I'm on the phone. I'm doing committee work. It's a full-time job, and I have to say, what motivates me is this community. I like the people I work with. I like the people who volunteer for stuff. We've got a cemeteries meeting tomorrow evening. I enjoy it. It's good to work with the community, and that keeps me going. So I'm happy to put in the time. Sometimes COVID was a little bit wore me kind of ragged. So, but working with the community is what motivates me. Thank you.
Oh. Okay. I was wondering whether the board has ever had the nerve to discuss consolidating the two libraries so that we could have one library that was open every day of the week, all year round, and that Aaron would still have his job, and he would be, so that he and Karen would both be sharing the librarian's job, and Aaron's share of time for the days that he worked would be paid by the town, and Karen would continue to be paid by Keene Valley. And I just wanted to comment, it was my understanding that the major damage to the Keene Library was done way back in the day of Irene, but perhaps I'm mistaken in that.
Because I'm the representative from the town board for the Keene Library, so I think I can try and answer your question. Consolidating the two libraries has been proposed several times for a long time, and maybe financially there's some good arguments for it, but well, that's also debatable. The Keene Library, for anybody who's familiar with it, and I was probably as advocate for your idea long before and when I started getting more involved with the Keene Library, I saw that it definitely serves a little niche for our community. And there's children and families and people that go to the Keene Library and use that facility. And Aaron has now developed programs in there that certainly many people use that library more than you think. And it also, okay. And I don't think that niche would necessarily be filled by Keene Valley. I think that, I think something would be lost by consolidating. Whether or not that is a good idea, I'm not sold on it right now, but I guess if it came down to budget crunch, and that might be one of the things that comes up again for consideration. That means Aaron loses his job, you know. All right. Anyway, thank you.
I think we're about wrapping up here. Any last questions? Oh, David? No.
It's a question for you, Corianne. I want to thank you for running. I think we would all agree that a transparent and positive campaign can really only strengthen the democratic process. I'm concerned that your campaign may not be fully transparent. As you said, you're working on the inside on town business, and working with the supervisor also, whom you're challenging for office. Part of the state comptroller's job description includes assisting or involvement in the management of elections. So I'd ask you, or I might say this raises the possibility of conflict of interest, or potential lack of transparency. So want to ask you what your take on that is, and also, to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest, why have you not resigned your position as town clerk? Thank you.
So I did speak with the Board of Elections when this came up. So if you're a town clerk, basically what you do with the election is you bring the bags to the electoral wherever. So for the primary, they drop the bags off to me. They're locked. And then I bring them to the voting place at 5 a.m. or something. If I was running for town clerk again, I could still hold the town clerk position, so it's not a conflict of interest at all. And any information that I spoke about is public knowledge, as far as budgeting and vouchers and things like that. So I guess I don't understand you. I mean, I don't really see the conflict of it. I'm not like the clerk to the supervisor or anything like that. I just take the minutes and do the registrar and the dog licenses and taxes. Like, I don't feel it's a conflict of interest. I mean, I'll step down as town clerk today if you would like. But, I mean, does the board or have any input on this, I guess?
Thank you. Any final question? I think and please feel free to engage with these folks outside as you filter out. And I want to thank the candidates, number one, for coming and participating in this event, and you folks in the audience for helping to make it an effective questioning session. I want to thank our creative team over here, Fritz and David, for recording and amplifying the event. Folks at the Keene School for making the space available. Mike was here earlier rearranging the room several times for us along the afternoon. And I think we're set. So please, most important, vote.